Hello, everybody, and welcome to the beginning of the NFL offseason coverage. Today, we begin with free agents and we begin with the quarterback position specifically. This isn't a top five or best five list by any means. These are just five free agent quarterbacks that I wanted to talk about and discuss and give my thoughts on about what kind of contracts we could be seeing them get. So do not take this as these are the best five quarterbacks in this free agency class. It very well might be, it very well might not be. It's just five guys that I find interesting and wanted to talk about. Now, before we dive into it, again, quickly subscribe, leave a like, comment down below. You know the whole drill with the YouTube stuff. So yeah, now let's dive right into it. The first one's going to be Sam Darnold. He's the biggest name from this free agency class of quarterbacks, and for good reason. He had a career year in Minnesota this past season, led them to one of the best seasons in franchise history. But in the kind of four big time games he played for Minnesota this season, he just did not play well. Those being the two against Detroit and the two against LA. Is the case where Darnold earned himself a bag in this past season with his play, career year, 35 touchdowns, led Minnesota to his great season. But it's just, can it be sustainable? I feel like teams are hopefully beginning the process of not giving out massive contracts after 1 year of production. And because Minnesota has a quarterback on their roster that a team did this for with Daniel Jones, and it's a case where you need to be cautious about how you spend your money, especially at the quarterback position. If you don't truly believe they're a franchise guy, at least you shouldn't give them a long-term deal. Now, I'm not saying Sam Darnold isn't going to get some big-time money deal. I have it at roughly around 30 million, even though SpotTrack, which is the source for a lot of these expected values, has the expected value near 40 mil, which feels like a lot to me, and 30 mil is a lot as well, which I feel like that's kind of the high end of what a team would be willing to give him just because of, again, 1 year, he has to be able to prove it again. And even with that, I'm thinking roughly 3 years, maybe four, with an out after 1 or 2 years, just because you need to be able to save your own skin in a contract like this. New York is getting screwed with dead cap now because of the Daniel Jones deal. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are in a very rough spot at this moment because he had that bad season. Of course, I'm expecting the Cowboys to kind of work it out, but that was a really bad season for Dak and before he getting injured, and they're tied down to that contract for the next few years. So it's being able to provide with some safety for your front office because especially for a team like the Vikings, who are probably the favorites to bring back Sam Darnold, you have JJ McCarthy waiting in the wing. You don't want to be tied to Sam Darnold's massive money when there's a pretty solid chance by midway through the season he might be relegated to a backup role. I mean, Atlanta is dealing with this right now as well with Kirk Cousins and his massive deal compared to Michael Penix. It's just a case of I feel like again Minnesota being the best bet to sign Darnold again. I feel like there'll be kind of a discount deal since Minnesota was the team to give him the second chance. So I could see a deal with Minnesota being closer to 25, maybe 27 and a half mil, whereas a team outside of Minnesota would have to be closer to 30 on the high end. So it's just interesting to see kind of what we can expect from Darnold in terms of contracts. But either way, I'm gonna be viewing a contract from Darnold close at that 30 plus mil range as an overpay. And again, not saying he didn't play well, not saying he didn't earn the money, but it's 1 year from a guy who Minnesota this past season was a quarterback stream team to play with because their defense was that good the majority of the season, and Justin Jefferson was having another great season as he always does. So if Darnold leaves to go to a different team and he doesn't have those pieces, can he still play to that same level? I'm not sure. I don't really believe so, just because we haven't seen it from Darnold in the past. So that's why I'm saying Minnesota would be the best bet to re-sign him and can get him at a discounted at roughly that 25, 27 and a half range. I feel like it'll be a pretty solid deal, especially if it has an out at some point. Now, the next quarterback is going to be Justin Fields, another quarterback who's going to have his name thrown around a lot in different talks about free agency. And that's just because he's a young guy who has been through he has been through the ringer early on in his career, but he's still young. He's just exiting his rookie contract. And in his brief stint as a starter in Pittsburgh, he played well for them. And there was a bunch of Steelers fans calling for him to be the starter come late in the season this past year. So a team is going to be willing to give him an opportunity in some capacity. The question then just becomes what team would it be? What kind of role would the opportunity come in? And what would the contract status look like? Now, if it's a team that's willing to give him a shot as a starter, I could see it be a 1 year deal similar to what Sam Darnold just signed this previous offseason. A roughly 1 year, 10 mil, but I think for Justin Fields, a little bit less would be kind of more so expected. The expected value according to SpotCheck right now is at roughly 9 mil. I could see it being closer to 7 and 8 if it's a starting kind of caliber position he's going to be asked to do. Or what I feel like would be better off for Justin Fields is taking a multi-year deal with, again, not the highest amount of average value, but a multi-year deal with a team who has a plan in place to make him the starter going forward after their current vet gets up there in age and decides to retire. And the main team I'm hinting at is the Los Angeles Rams. I think they could be a pretty solid fit for Justin Fields because Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay would be great for Fields to learn under and really reestablish the style of game he wants to play. And plus, he has no pressure to start right away in LA. They're just coming off of a fantastic season, and he can learn under Stafford for a year or two before getting that chance to start again. I just think that we saw with his time in Pittsburgh was a change of pace and a change of scenery was much needed compared to Chicago. And I'm sure Pittsburgh would like to bring him back in some capacity, but there are some reports that Pittsburgh currently is interested in other guys in the draft, but that would be for a different video. But it's just a case where another change in scenery in a position where he doesn't need to do a whole lot and doesn't need to have a lot of pressure under him just yet as he relearns his style and regains his confidence in his game. I feel like LA would be the perfect fit for that, especially because again, they have that young defense they're working towards, and Justin Fields, he signs a multi-year deal, not worth too much money. They can truly build that team around his style and help build that entire team fully compared to some other teams with a quarterback around his same age. And the Rams are clearly a team who's now looking to be entering rebuild mode anytime soon. And Fields can definitely help that out if again he progresses well under McVay. So I have him going to Los Angeles for a roughly 1 year, 8-9-ish $1 million deal. Or no, not 1 year. A 2 maybe 3 year deal. Who knows? But again, some kind of multi-year deal under McVay I feel like would be great for Justin Fields. Next up is another Steelers quarterback, Russell Wilson. He is up there in age, and this could very easily be the last type of contract he gets as a starter in the NFL. As his play the past 2-3 years, while it hasn't been necessarily terrible, it hasn't been to that same level that Russell Wilson is used to, where it's a case of him being able to elevate a team. He just wasn't able to in Denver his final year there, and he wasn't able to in Pittsburgh in this back half of the season. And that's kind of the issue with it all with Russell Wilson is he's a great guy. He's a good mentor he could be a good mentor to someone. He's not someone that I feel like can win you a Super Bowl at this point in his career the same way he was earlier. So it's a case of you sign him to be a mentor and a bridge quarterback, but it's the case where he's no longer being tied down by that dead cap. And I say him being tied down. Denver has already paid off that dead cap and everything. So Russ is not going to sign for a minimum or for a shorter dollar value deal. He's going to want to sign for a big time deal again. And Spotcheck has the current estimation at roughly 39 million, which definitely feels high for a Russell Wilson type of player at this point of his career. And especially with the mindset of him potentially being a mentor and a veteran presence for a team who either could be drafting someone in this offseason or the following one. It's a case where I'm seeing more so 25-30 for him, just because it's an aging vet who no one really knows what he got left in him. It's a case where Aaron Rodgers signed for low 30s. Matthew Stafford is also roughly in the mid 30s for his deal. So I doubt Wilson's going to get close to 40 considering his level of play compared to a Matthew Stafford and even an Aaron Rodgers. So a place where he could be a starter for a season, maybe two, and be able to just mentor the next guy for that team, I feel like would be a good spot. The question is, will Russ be able to take that kind of role and leadership aspect to his game, or does he still want to be the starter and the main guy going forward for a team? I really don't know what he's thinking in that aspect, but if I was a team trying to reach out for Russell Wilson, it would not be for a long-term starting option. It will be for a mentor and bridge position. And thus, we really don't want to sign him for close to 40 mil in that case. But as for like potential teams I could see him being signed with, I mean, obviously Vegas is an option since they just hired Pete Carroll, but I doubt that Vegas fans want that. And plus, that team's in a very weird spot where they need a lot more help than just a mentor for Aiden O'Connell. They're currently not even in a spot to draft a franchise guy, it feels. So I doubt they're ready for a true mentor just yet, but I guess that's where the 2-year deal could come in. I am more so thinking like a Tennessee, but you don't want to tie that much money to someone when you have a pretty good amount of cap space right now to kind of help out the guy you're going to draft at number 1, which again, that'll be a topic for a different video. But yeah, that's Russell Wilson, a weird spot, but could be his last deal in some kind of starting role. It's been a weird back half of his career, so we'll see how it goes from here. All right, next guy, Joe Flacco. And those we're going to talk about, he's age 40 at this point. He just finished up a season in Indianapolis that wasn't the greatest compared to what he had in Cleveland, but I'm bringing up Joe Flacco for two specific reasons. One, he has full intentions to play in 2025. So that's the main reason he stayed on this list after I started going through everything. So he wants to play in 2025. That's perfect. The other reason was a interview that Joe Flacco did at some point earlier in the last offseason, earlier in the season, where he talked about the fact that he wanted to sign in Miami, but the Dolphins never properly reached out to him to try and get a deal done. And it was the fact that he was willing to come to Miami for a lesser dollar value deal. Now, why am I saying all that? It's because I have Miami as the best fit for Joe Flacco in this offseason. Kind of a biased stance of this, I know. But I do feel like Joe Flacco would be one of the better backup options Miami could get in this free agency class. And I'm not fully sure if they're going to go for someone in free agency or for the draft. I would be fine going after someone in both because a backup quarterback job is something that Miami really needs to figure out. And Joe Flacco can still give you a few good games in him. As like he can still get you a few wins that you need. And that's the key thing that Miami missed last year. And again, he played solid for Indianapolis in a few games. He played really well for Cleveland 2 years ago. He's up there in age, so probably this might be his last contract. Depends on the length of the deal and everything. But he is a very, very valuable backup in the NFL. He has shown that the past few years that he can play at a high level, and he wants to be in this system that Miami has. He wants to help out with the team in some way, and he wants to play for Miami. That's the key thing Miami needs right now is guys who want to play for them after what was a very rough season. And plus, he could help out Tua in the health department because Flacco took some massive fucking hits during his career and got up and played with very, very little time in between snaps. So he could help out with that mentality and bring in that leadership role that the entire team needs, it feels, at this point. So Joe Flacco to Miami for a roughly 1, maybe 2-year deal. Is kind of a similar dollar value to what he just signed with in Indianapolis, maybe a little bit less. Thinking more so around that 5 mil, maybe a little bit closer to 2.5. But either way, it's a very solid deal to get a type of quarterback of Flacco status at. Now, the final quarterback we'll quickly go over is Jameis Winston. I want to talk about Winston because he's just a damn good dude. Like he is very, very easy to root for. I would not be shocked if Cleveland brings him back. I also wouldn't be shocked if they let him walk because Cleveland is just that kind of weird organization. But he's also in a similar state to Justin Fields, more so kind of Sam Darnold, but similar state to Justin Fields, where he's looking to probably start again in some capacity. He's been a great backup in New Orleans and decent enough backup in Cleveland last year, considering the state of that team. And there's definitely going to be teams out there wanting to bring in just Jameis Winston for his type of leadership and for his type of backup capabilities. The issue is he throws a lot of interceptions. That's never been new with Jameis Winston. I mean, in 2021 for New Orleans, he played fantastically, went 5-2, 14 touchdowns, like 3 interceptions. But besides that, it's a pretty 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which obviously isn't good and obviously is one of the bigger concerns about the style of play. But at the same time, like, again, he can give you 5 touchdown games. It's just you might have to deal with throwing like 3 interceptions that game. But it's still a case of he's not afraid to sling the ball. He will push the ball downfield. And that is a talent that a lot of teams need at quarterback at this point. And whether it's a bridge role where he starts half the season or starts a full season while a team has a younger guy waiting in the wing, or it's a backup role where, hey, we need you to play 2 games this season, just sling the ball around and see if you can win one of them. Like, James doesn't care. He's a great locker room guy. He can definitely get the team rallied behind him. And as a backup piece, okay, he is fantastic. He's been through a lot in the NFL. Again, the 30 for 30 touchdown interception season was a crazy season for his last year in Tampa Bay. But again, if he can get back to that 2021 self, he's a legit quarterback in this league and a legit backup option. So I could see Jameis signing for a depends on the situation. I can see him signing for a multi-year deal or a 1-year deal, depending on just what the team is looking for that signs him. If it's a multi-year deal, I could see it close to a similar value to what he just signed with Cleveland, around that 4 million, maybe closer to 5 and 6 after how he played. Or if it's a 1-year deal, I could see him getting closer to what Justin Fields' expected value is, around 9 million, maybe 8 million. But nonetheless, a team to sign Jameis Winston would not be disappointed with the type of player and the type of just overall guy that they get. He is a dog. He's a great person. And again, so easy to root for, despite obviously his FSU stuff. But since entering the NFL and since really fixing his ways, he's been such an easy guy to root for, much different than what Cleveland currently has a quarterback. That's part of the reason why that. Well, that's a different thing to talk about. But yeah, I really like Jameis Winston, someone I feel like, if given another opportunity as a starter full time, could surprise a lot of people, similar to what Sam Darnold did. I don't think he will be the same level of Sam Darnold just because of the interception issue, but nonetheless, I do like Jameis Winston, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on where he signs this offseason. Well, with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts. Any other free agent quarterbacks you have thoughts on, let me know. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.